welcome back to Open Studio. All right, I don't know what I'm doing. Oh, I know what I'm doing. All right, it takes me a minute. So we're gonna keep working on the tank and bits and pieces. We're gonna do is, I just didn't realize why the camera wasn't there, but now I know. All right, so what I'm gonna do, oops, I mean to do that. Let's see what I'm doing here. There we go. I'm gonna put in the yellow, that yellow ochre, and the blue, and then I'll be able to start like really digging into some of the details. So that's what we're gonna do. I think I'll start with the blue because, like I showed last week, I have. So I showed this last week. This is the background for another painting, but this is a great color for what I want to use. So I'm going to use it. It's nice and they don't go to waste and makes me happy. It's kind of a purpley blue color, which is perfect. Purple will be nice in there and add that steel feeling to it. All right, and if I need to adjust this as I go, so for instance, I don't think I use this on the front fender, which has the same kind of patina. If say the front fender is very blue, but this is more purple, then I can always add a little bit of blue to it as I go. I've already got that on here, which is nice, but I missed it on the top of this guy. So still use the CS on this. Now this one is a different mix of paint. So whenever I do this, I kind of make a note on it. And the reason why is because this says that ABS up at the top, the 10%, that's auto-borne sealer. And the auto-borne sealer is basically the primer. It's a much heavier paint than the blue, than the regular colors. So that's why it's already pre-reduced in here. But knowing that, it helps me, because if I just thought I used regular white and it's an auto-borne sealer, it wouldn't come out of this brush very easily. The auto-borne sealer is just a thick covering paint. So I just need to make sure I know what's in there when I do it. Generally, the way it goes is if there's no markings on it, then I know it's just paint, which again, I shouldn't do that. I should be in the habit of marking everything, but it's kind of the way that I know. Like the rust color, I still haven't put a label on that, but I will. All right, so let's get this color in here first, and I'll just spray it real light. Get it started. I could block off the upright here. I don't want to get purple on that or blue on that. But I'm putting it on so light. I've just got to dust over that when I get the yellow out, and it'll straighten that out. So what I'm doing is I weigh how long it would take to reach over and grab a stencil, as opposed to just floating some yellow on that, and it's quicker to float the yellow on it, so I don't have to worry about all that. This up here is probably some sort of stainless because it's pretty shiny. So I'm going to add that light bluish purpley to that. And it is very purple now that I'm looking at it. I don't know if it bothers me though. The funny part is I have just a pale light blue up here also. It's just that I grabbed this one first. And guy here. And again, there's a lot of blue on whatever these struts are. I haven't done the research I said I was going to do last week to see if that's part of the sidecar. It's just weird because the sidecar, if you would think the sidecar, it would run across here and you'd see the line there, but in the reference photo there isn't any division here. There's a gentleman standing right here, which I took out. But he's wearing a gray shirt, and then what's behind here is kind of brown, like the rust of the bike. So I don't know. I'm going to have to really look at that. It just seems like it would pop up too high right here if it was a sidecar. But I will find out. I'll figure that out. Again, I'm not overly worried about doing that immediately, because I've got a long way to go on this part. All right. Some on that, but not much. And anywhere else. Got that down there, but I'm not doing that. Those are brown. That's it. Looks good. Oh, I didn't even do this clip up here. So I'm going to add the blue to that in anticipation of finishing that. I didn't even work on that little clip. There's no shading on it or anything. And actually, I didn't even finish the rest of where the grip, the handlebar is. I mean, the grip. I didn't work on that yet either, so that's okay. All right, so I'm going to get this out now, clean this out. I'm going to do the same thing with the yellow ochre. I might add a little bit of white to it because the yellow ochre is going to come out of the gate really, really strong. So let's clean this out for a second. I have another Micron C, my older Micron C, and I'm always on the fence on whether to. I should really just fix all of them. The Micron C needs my older one needs a new head, a whole head system, new needle, some other bits and pieces. And I thought of how nice it would be to have 2 operating Micron Cs. This one's newer. This one's probably about 2 years old. But I have the feeling that if I do that, I'm going to leave paint in them more frequently. Like I'll just grab another one, that kind of thing. So the urge there isn't to get that done. And then of course my HPSB, my very first airbrush, and then my Micron C, which is a gift from my dad way long time ago. I need to just get some bits and pieces for those too. I don't use them that often. They still work great. They're awesome, but they become way more sentimental to me than functional. You know what I mean? So not that anything would truly really happen to them, but I just don't want to. I don't want to run that risk. But I should kind of refurb them a little bit so that they are ready to go. They're pretty much ready to go right now. All right, so what I did was I just grabbed some detail yellow ochre, put a drop of that in. I could have just put it on the palette or re-put it on the palette and grabbed a teeny weeny bit of it, but this will be fine. And then I'm going to grab some opaque white, which is 1:1. I'm going to do this off camera though, so I don't, because I knew this was going to be gummed up. I don't want to get I don't have another accident like I did before. So I'm just going to add some white to that and really kind of reduce that out. I may add, or not reduce it, that was what was in my head. So I'm going to mix that up, see what I got. That's good. That's good. So that's what we're looking like right now. I could try to spray this. Yeah, I'll put a little bit of that 40-50 reducer mix in here just to help it out. The white, both white and yellow ochre don't like to spray very well through detail brushes. I mean, you can get them to do it, but they don't really like it. So by adding a little bit of that 40-50, it helps smooth it out a little bit. Oh, it's green in that. That's not good. Oh, I know I was green in that. I was working on another painting of some plants, and I was going back and forth between yellow ochre and green, so that's how it got in there. But this time I'm just going to grab a touch of yellow ochre off of the palette, because I don't need much. I just want to pump that up a little bit. If I put a whole other drop of yellow ochre in here, it's going to really turn yellow, and I don't want that. Yeah, I'm going to start with this and see what we can do, because we can always, like I said, all the time, it's always easier to add than subtract. So this way, if I start off with a little bit lighter yellow and then need to add a little bit more yellow to it, that's much easier than backing it up. Like if it's too much yellow to start, I have to, really bury that. This may be it's maybe not enough. Which is okay. Like I said, I'd rather be in this position than blast this on here and say, wow, that's not what I want at all. Yeah, this is too light. So I am going to add a bunch to it. I may, I may just pull off, what the heck? What could go wrong? I'm going to put a whole drop in it. See what happens. If it doesn't work, doesn't work. It's no big deal. That actually looks pretty good. The other thing that's happening, the reason why that light cream color was looking so white, so blue, was because of the color shift that's going on there too. White on top of brown always shifts to blue, to a cool color. So that's what I was seeing there too. So it looked right in the cup, but then when I got it onto the surface, mixing with all the brown, it just looked like it was kind of washing out. It was turning that bluish color, which I don't want that. Okay. Oh, there's some great orange on this as well. There's just lots of colors going on here. I think that's mostly because of the way that these parts are oriented. Like the top of the fender takes a lot of abuse. You know, the headlight bezel takes a lot of abuse. The front of that sidecar, same thing. Just between the actual riding around and just sitting in the weather. But the sides take a more subtle, I mean, they're certainly patinaed, but they take a much more subtle kind of patina than those directly attacked parts. So it's just a nice contrast. So there's a lot of orange down in here, but I'm going to, again, same thing. I'm going to base this with the yellow. So as I go to put that burnt umber and raw sienna in here and all those colors, that they just have something to stand on, so I can have areas of this peeking through. Now the Harley logo is, like I said, it's very bright. It's like a really kind of a brighter yellow from that primer, a lot like the uprights here. So I'm same thing, I'm going to base that with the yellow, not really being overly careful about getting the detail in the right spot, because all the edges are going to be covered by the darker colors. So I'm just kind of getting the letters and just spraying generally. And the darker colors will certainly cover this light yellow, so I'm not worried about that. But I also don't want to totally obscure the HD stencil yet, because I got to do that in stages so that I can still see it along the way. If I do obscure the HD stencil, it's not a big deal because I have all the photocopies, which I'll probably lean on a little bit at some point. But at this point, I can still see everything. Yeah, this will be a nice primer for the more stout yellow that's going to kind of go on top of this. It's really dark down in here, so again, that yellow is just something to put there. And again, these everything we look at, man, it's like nothing is red, nothing is green, nothing is brown or purple or whatever. It's always mixed up with so many other colors. Our brain, again, it's our brain's effort to make sense of what it's looking at, so, and put it into like a category. It's just classic left brain stuff, you know. Wants to put it in a box. So, and it can be a detriment when you're trying to paint something realistic, because you see brown and you immediately grab the brown, when really that's not what's going on here at all. There's oranges and blues and just so many other things going on. It's definitely the job of our eyes to take over and say, okay, that's great. Thanks for the starting point. I know it's brown now, and I'll see at the end. Fortunately for me, I have no problem turning my brain off. All right. Again, I'm getting overspray onto, you know, the darker parts that I already finished. It's not a big deal. It isn't a big deal at all. I mean, I got to tighten everything up anyway. I have to go back in and tighten up the area where I adjusted that. So what the trick is to remember those things. I mean, I can see those areas really, really strongly, but there's sometimes, like, you know, like I just set up on the clip up here, I forgot to do something, and it's now, you know, unless I actively look at it, I won't remember to do it. So I gotta really keep tabs on those things if they happen. I'm not a good note keeper. Like, I know some people can, you know, jot down notes. It's okay, don't forget to grab this and that. So I mean, sometimes I'll do at the end, like if I have a bucket list of things to do on a painting, I'll just make a bunch of notes. But it's pretty rare. I try to hit them as I'm going. Okay, I'm good with that. Good with that. And now we'll jump, same thing. I'm going to dump that out and jump to that red oxide. The red oxide, again, is kind of my go-to orange color. It's listed in the red family, but it's way more orange, especially when you airbrush with it. It's just a great, it's like my yellow ochre. You know, yellow ochre is my go-to yellow. I use it all the time. Just really, really like it. And the same thing with the red oxide. That's my orange. Because a good strong, like, printing secondary orange like this, like pyrrole orange, this screams like highway sign to me. You know what I mean? That's how strong this is. And I rarely need something like this. I'll use it to adjust another color or things like that, but rarely will I ever use this out of the bottle unless it's something man-made and it's orange and this is the base color. More times than not, I'll use red oxide, which again here looks very, you know, deep brown, but you'll see it when I spray it. It's much more red. I mean, much more orange. Sorry. So this will be the last base color before we start digging into some of the details. So again, I try to sandwich everything. I don't like too much of one thing being the last thing I do. So I wouldn't airbrush all this and then paintbrush and then call it done. The paintbrushing needs to be sandwiched between the airbrushing. The same thing if it's mostly paintbrush. If I do a lot of paintbrushing and then do some airbrushing, I don't want the airbrush to be the last thing to do. I'll just add a little bit more paintbrush to kind of blend all those together. And that's exactly it. Like I said, I always say it. I don't want someone to look at it and say, you know, great airbrush painting or great paintbrush painting or great whatever painting. I just want it to be a good painting. So, all right. So this is, I've already got this. This is actually a blue shifter. It's just a hyper reduced red oxide, but it's pure red oxide. There's nothing else in there. So I can use it for this since I'm just kind of doing some general basing with it. This is gigantically thin, like way, way too thin. But for what I'm using it for, to just kind of tint some of the areas that have that orangey feel to it, it's perfect for that. Plus, a real important thing, we talked about reduction a little bit on the last episode as I was working with some of the stuff. The reason, again, why I get away with this, using a super reduced, really weak sticking paint, is because I'm painting this onto paint. So it's actually tinting the paint. It's sticking to the paint that's already there. So that's its adhesion. I wouldn't want to tape over anything like this. I mean, I'd rarely ever tape over a whole painting anyway, especially as it's, you know, near the end. If I was going to tape over this, if I needed to, like I'm still debating on whether putting a silver pinstripe around the whole outside edge of this, which I would need to then mask off the painting. I would then spray this with UVLS satin first. I'd put about 2 or 3 good coats on it. That first one would be really light, and it would just kind of melt in with all the really super thin layers that I'm putting on right now. So that satin clear coat would then be the strength for all this stuff, and then I could tape on it. This whole bottom of the tank is really dark, but by including all these, you know, oranges and yellows and everything, it's just going to make it so much more dramatic and so much more depth in it, because that light is going to be traveling all the way through all these colors. Okay. There's a lot of this orange on the box up here. I feel bad I don't know all my 1920s Harley parts names, official names. Again, when I go to figure out the sidecar, I'll straighten all that out. Again, I should lean on my friends at Retro Cycle and get a parts list for this bike, so I know what I'm supposed to be calling all this stuff. Half of it is I think some of the names have changed over the years, and so I don't want to get it wrong. I say that as I'm getting it wrong. Oh well. I can paint them, I just can't fix them. So we'll go with that. Like I said, that's for Retro Cycle. They can. I'll put a link to Retro Cycle as well. so you can kind of check out what they do. They're amazing. I got this photo from a bike show in Boston, but recently was fortunate enough to be able to do some work with Retrocycle, and that's all they do is they restore all these old Harleys, and it's pretty amazing. Other things too, but the bike I was able to work on was a 33 Harley VL, which was amazing. I painted a little bit of the battery box for them, which you can't see it on this bike. It's actually behind here, under the seat. A good way to kind of, like I was talking about the overspray here, good way to kind of eliminate that or get that kind of out of the way. You see that blue shift with it. Again, this is exactly why I mixed up this color to address issues like that. So if I go over that overspray right here, the first thing that happens is it takes the curse off it, and that it's almost gone right now because I removed the blue shift. And the same thing over here. If I take that, now this is a little bit heavier, so I'm not going to be able to cover it. It's just going to turn like a deep orange, but it'll take the curse off until I can get the darker color on there. All right, I want to get this tint. And this will develop, I'll do it down in here. This will develop into a really just a brilliant orange if I build it up enough. It takes a long time with this being so thin to build it up. But if I wanted to, which I don't because it's not what it's made for, but I could build this up by putting layer upon layer upon layer. And again, if I needed to do that in a real detail area, that's what it's for. But this is really not what I was using it for this. I was really just looking to introduce that orange. There's a whole ton of texture here, which I still need to do, but I won't do that till the next step. Again, keep my eye on the ball and make sure that I just kind of do what I'm supposed to be doing here, which is just basing that in, giving me that fade of orange where it needs it. There's so much awesome rusty texture on this, which we'll get to when we get to the burnt umber. It'll be in the next episode, but maybe I'll start a little bit of it to give you an idea. I just don't want to run this out and not have all this done. So that's pretty blue. It's got a lot of blue in it. No, I think actually that's in good shape. Yeah, I think it's in really good shape. So yeah, we have about 7 minutes left. So yeah, I'm going to jump to the darker color to show you how it starts to work here. So the darker color is black and burnt umber. I could do an intermediate step of just burnt umber, which I think I am going to do. All right. You know what? No, I'm not. The reason why, I'll show you. Burnt umber is a great color too. But it's very brown. So if I do the brown on here, which is kind of what I was thinking, there's not a whole lot of that straight up brown on this. It seems to go from these colors here right into that burnt umber color, the black and burnt umber color. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with that, and then I'm going to adjust where needed. Like I may still need to put just burnt umber in there by itself. So that is where this color comes in. And this is aptly named Blumber. It's black and burnt umber. And I wish I could tell you there's a specific ratio that I use, but I just mix it up. It's definitely a frequent intermediate dark color for me. I did this originally because the original black from Createx had a lot of blue in it. And I needed a real warm brown, so I came up with this kind of burnt umber black mix. Now the opaque black has a real brown feel to it anyway, so I find I don't use it as much, but I still use it. And again, this is the same 1 to 10 reducer. Add a little bit to that because I'm going for not coverage with this. I really want detail with this because this is going to start kind of cutting in the darker areas. We're not going to get all of this done in this episode, but I will pick it up right where I left off on the last one. Mix this up really, really well. I do use this color a lot. Umber is a real kind of a greenish brown, but again, when I mix that with the old Createx, it just really produces really nice dark color. And this brush is spraying by itself. So what I'm going to do, since I need to clean that out, I'm going to swap this color into the Micron B. And I'm going to do that. Normally I would, like I said, you guys are getting everything. Normally what I would do is I would address the chunk of paint that's causing that to spray by itself and then keep going. But I want to get this in, a little bit of this in before the end of this episode. I got about 5 minutes left. So just swap out the brush. It's spraying. So this color will develop really, really nice darks, but with a lot of detail. So generally what I do, I'm going to get closer in the photo so I can see what I'm doing. Normally what I'll do now is I'll just start to cut in the real darkest darks, and that will give me the relative value that I need to shoot for the rest of the painting, or for the rest of the area really. It's not going to be as totally dark as it totally needs to be, but again, it's that solid step in the right direction so I can start making other decisions. And those other decisions are, you know, the details and the other colors that appear in these parts. Sometimes if I develop it all real slowly and evenly, sometimes I, you know, fall short of that. I'm looking at everything relatively, which is what we do with color, and it's all too light. And then I'm stuck, because if I do the final details and then I sit back and I'm like, that's too light, that's a drag, because I literally have to go through all the steps again, just darkening them up. You can't just spray it with a darker color and have it be darker. So this is an important part of things, to kind of set that scale of what the value is going to be for that part. This rust is awesome on this. It's very brown though, so I got to be careful. This is very dark. It's, you know, like I said, it's mostly black with a little bit of umber. So I'm going to need to kind of put on the brakes here. I don't want to go full saturation here, because then I won't be able to put the extra brown in there. But now that I know where it's going, I can kind of hold back a little bit on how much of this I put on, and then I can just mist over it with the burnt umber and get this really, you know, really get it to where it should be. Like down the bottom of this thing, it's where the two pieces meet, it's really dark, but then it fades up into this rusty color. But there is a lot of burnt umber. There's really a lot of brown in this, so I want to make sure that I leave room for that. The burnt umber will develop a pretty dark color as well. It looked like just regular brown in the bottle there, but it'll get pretty dark. So I want to keep that in mind as I'm putting in this. Again, just super nice with all this pitted rust. Just really, really nice. And again, this piece on the side was not getting too much abuse, so there's not only the rust, but there's still paint on it, and just a little bit of everything. Like, I'm definitely going to have to use some paintbrush on this for the chipping paint and everything. It's going to be good. But again, I got to keep my eye on the ball and not get too embroiled in the details. Just want to still kind of block in the darker areas. And frequently sit back. You know, I really want to make sure that, for me, you know, with a larger canvas, you step away from it and look at it from a distance, or, you know, give your eyes a break on it, take the night off and come back in the morning with a set of fresh eyes. So that's super important for any painting at any size level. With these paintings, though, I've said it before, it's a little bit easier for me because I can just lean back in my chair and it's like I'm 6 feet away from it. So that's an advantage of working small. But you have to do it. I have to frequently do it because I don't want to get tied up so much in these details that I lose the overall feel for the whole thing. There we go. Yeah, I'm glad I got to do some of this for you. All right. What we're going to do on the next episode is we're going to pick up right where we left off. I may start to block in this. I should have an answer next week about the sidecar, because what I ideally should do is finish that sidecar first. If it is back there, which I believe it is now, and that's just the frame for it. I should get that done, because if I do all this detail and then have to do that, that's a total drag. So I'd rather just do the background and then just be able to do all the other stuff around it. So that's, I think, the next step, and I'll have that resolved by the end of the week, or by next week. All right. So again, thank you for joining me. Like and subscribe would be very much appreciated. And I said I would give the super thanks as we go. Those will be grouped together because I frequently film these 2 or 3 at a time. So I'm going to miss the thanks as they come in. But I will, on the episode following, when I actually get to see them, I will make those thanks known to everyone. So I certainly appreciate it. You guys are the best. For Steve Leahy in Open Studio, love you, and I will catch you guys next time.